Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Mark Salisbury, and I am the president of customer experience here at QuestionPro, and we've got an informative webinar here today, and especially because joining me is Shep Hyken. Go ahead and change that slide. Shep is the Chief Amazement Officer at Shepherd Presentations. He's also written several books. Shep, I know that you are not only written books, but you're a best-selling author on the New York Times, Wall Street Journal. You're a regular contributor to Forbes, writing about customer experience in general. You're a thought leader in this space. Thank you so much for joining us today, Shep.
Oh, Mark, it's my pleasure. Glad to be here. We've got an awful lot to talk about. I'm excited just thinking about it.
Wonderful. Let's go ahead and let's talk about what's the state of CX? What does it look like today? So we're seeing that companies want to improve their customer experience, but there's a gap. There's a lot of money that's lost in this process. So, what are you seeing in the space?
So it's true. So many companies, executives of companies, leadership are saying they want to improve customer experience, and it is a top priority. The number you see, the $62 billion number, was a survey that was put out by New Voice Media last year is when they announced it. And what they found was that $62 billion was lost due to poor customer service. And that number was up by almost 50% from just 2 years prior. So you'd think, wow, customer service is getting worse. The reality of it is, though, customer service is not getting worse. It's actually getting better. What's happening is customers' expectations are getting higher, and it's outpacing a lot of companies that, even though they're rising in the world of customer service, they're not rising fast enough and quick enough. Great companies out there, the rock stars, that if I asked you who are the best service companies in the world, you'd start naming them. These people are setting the bar for everyone else. The American Customer Satisfaction Index, put out by the University of Michigan, indicates that virtually every sector is improving, including, are you ready for this? Government.
No way.
So if the government is getting better, and cable TV and internet providers and all of the laggards in the past, they're all getting better. They're just not getting better fast enough. So that's kind of like my overall view of how I see things going in the customer service and experience space.
Okay. So one of the recent ones I think probably everybody who's listening right now is aware of is with United Airlines. We saw this incident, kind of blew up on them. What is your perspective on that? And what kind of ways does that impact revenue when you have an incident like that that goes viral, goes public, is in the media?
Right. So unless somebody's been hiding under a rock, everybody knows that United Airlines had a major service debacle. Customer refused to get off the plane when they claimed at the time that the plane was overbooked. What they were trying to do is put an employee on the plane to go to another airport, and they were asking passengers to get off. When he didn't want to get off, they brought in the forces, and it became physical. So I'm not going to say whether that was right or wrong. I think we all know where that lies. Judge, jury, whatever has decided that. And my understanding is they've actually settled with the gentleman. However, what happened there is a couple of things. Number one, to your point, is United going to lose money over this? Well, there are a number of people that were furious. I mean, a huge number, and said they will never fly United again. That number is probably somewhat insignificant in the big scheme of passengers on United Airlines. The market cap for United dropped within a couple of days down to almost $1 billion less than what it was.
Wow.
That's huge. Now, it's come back pretty much since then. And you know what? It's like until they sell the stock, it's really not a loss. It's just on paper. So I think that in the short term, this is going to take a hit pretty hard. In the long term, everything's going to be fine. Unfortunately, an incident like this, and I can't, say this was a good thing because it wasn't that it happened. However, let's try to find the silver lining in a dark cloud. The airline industry has not been the same as it was. Just actually yesterday, I was working with one of my colleagues who does some of her training in her company. We were working on a presentation. He spent 38 years 38 years, something like that, 32 years at Delta Airlines. And we took a picture of what flight attendants looked like 30 plus years ago. And they were just smiling and beaming and everything else. And then we took a picture of the guy. And by the way, there was a recent American Airlines incident. And we took a picture that was on the press of the American Airlines flight attendant yelling at a passenger.
Oh,
and
no.
really, those are extremes, but that's what's happened. The airlines have become very regulated, very operations focused. And I could go on and on about this, but I think what happened is with the United incident and every other incident that's going to be brought to light as a result of people becoming acutely aware of the airlines and what how they're treating us, I think it's going to raise the bar for the airlines. And already I'm seeing airlines meeting that standard. United finally came out. Their CEO finally came out with a really nice email. It took a while, but number one, they admitted that they put operations before the customer. Big mistake. Okay. You're either operations focused or you're customer focused. It's really hard to be, it was obvious they were so far to one side. They weren't showing anything, toward the customer. Number two, he started to raise the bar. He said, you know what, it's the asking people to get off a plane and only offering this much money may not be enough. Let's raise the standard. It was $1,350. Now they're saying $10,000. If we have to bump you, we'll give you up to $10,000. We'll keep, it's like a bid. Would you get off the plane for $2,000, $2,500, $3,000? Okay. By the way, I don't know. I've been reading that perhaps one of the other airlines did this right away as well, maybe even before United did. But what's happening is they're recognizing they got to raise the bar. And I think it's going to be good for everybody flying. And let's hope it stays that way for a long time.
Yeah. And so you said, I saw that email, by the way. I was really impressed with the way that the CEO handled that. You said that it's not that customer experience is getting worse, that that the industries are getting better, even the government's getting better. We're seeing that some of these companies are getting on board with seeing customer experience as a competitive differentiator. But by this stat right here on the slide shows us that by 2020, customer experience is going to overtake price and product as a key brand differentiator. Are you seeing that this is happening, that there are some industries, some verticals where they're leading the way in this, that are on the cutting edge?
It's not even so much, but let's talk about what this concept is. It's already happening right now. There are low price providers. And if you walk into a Walmart, I don't think you expect to see the same number of people on the sales floor as if you walked into Nordstrom. And guess what? There's a big price discrepancy between the items. And, look at what big box stores do with discounts and product selections versus going to, let's talk about the hardware industry, like the Home Depot or a Lowe's or Menards, low prices, big selection. You go to an Ace Hardware, it's a tenth of the size. A little bit, I would say they're competitively priced, but not the lower price. And you get that, that better, more knowledgeable, helpful experience that you might not get at one of the others. Not that the others are going to give you bad service. They'll give you friendly service or nice service. It just may not be to the level you need. Here's the point. I don't think that this slide would make you think that customer experience will overtake price. There's no way price will ever be completely irrelevant.
True.
In other words, I'm not going to pay you 10 times more for something I know I can get. Although we look at Starbucks, okay, but we're only talking about a cup of coffee. But if we're talking about buying an automobile and one dealership selling the same automobile for 10 times more than another dealership, you're going to say, why? What am I going to get? And so I think it's never going to make it completely irrelevant. But here's something we always need to think about. The best service in the world doesn't matter if the product that you buy doesn't do what it's supposed to do. The best product in the world without good service, the customer is going to say, where can I get something close to that best product and be treated a little bit better? So it really takes the two of them together. However, when you factor in price, that's where the scale starts to move even more so, because price is going to be less relevant than it is today. Still always going to be there, but it'll be less relevant.
That does make sense. It won't go away. We're just seeing that customer experience is it's becoming more and more important. So this is one of your quotes here, Shep.
Right, one of my favorite quotes.
So tell us about this. So a satisfied customer and a loyal customer, what is the difference between those two?
Well, it's not even so much, well, I guess, what is the difference? Satisfactory is a rating. Loyalty is an emotion. So years ago, I read a study by two professors at Vanderbilt University that up to 40% of satisfied customers don't come back even when they're satisfied. Now, the folks that created NPS, Net Promoter Score, they came out with another stat that said in certain industries, it can be as high as 80%. And that's the hospitality industry, like a hotel or a restaurant or something like that. If you think about it, why wouldn't they want to come back? They're satisfied, right?
Yes.
Well, here's the deal. It's average, satisfactory. And if you have a choice to spend your hard-earned money in a place that's better than just okay, you're probably going to want to do that. And that's what the average or satisfied customer is. It's an okay experience. But you give me something a little bit better, now you got a shot at making me want to come back. So if you give me, if on a scale of 1 to 5, with 3 being satisfactory, 4 being, good, and 5 being excellent, and then of course 1 is poor. And the point is, a 3 or even something close to a 4 isn't good enough. And I know we're going to be talking about NPS, Net Promoter Score, and that's why the 9 or the 10s, 9 and 10s are the ones that promote. And the ones in the middle, the passives, you don't know which direction they're going. They're putting up with you. Average is a rating, and loyalty is an emotion. If we can move them to where they're connected to us, they love doing business with us because of the way we treat them and the way they, what they experience, they're going to want to come back.
Yeah, that's good. You have to go beyond satisfaction. You effectively have to move more and more toward delight to get to that loyalty. And loyalty is where we see revenue coming, right? It's loyalty means I'm going to purchase or I'm likely to purchase again. This simple statistic here, you see that leaders in the CX space are generating more revenue or revenue faster. They're growing their revenue faster than laggards. What are you seeing as the main differences in how they're investing in customer experience compared to the laggards?
Sure. And I think this ties back to the last slide, which was satisfied versus loyalty. People say, well, what does it take to get to loyalty? And you look at a slide like this, you go, my God, look at the discrepancy in the numbers. They're huge. Who wouldn't want to do this? But boy, what do you have to do to get there? And here's the point. We talked about average or satisfactory. Just be better than that. And how much better do you have to be? Not a lot better. Believe it or not, you only need to be a little bit better. But the key is you need to be a little bit better all of the time. And the all of the time part is what is hard, because that consistency is what creates the loyalty. It's that predictable and consistent experience. So as I look at this, and this is just revenue growth for TV and internet providers, okay? And that's an area where these people have, these are, I would consider, customer experience laggards. I mean, if you think about it, and I know they're getting better at it, but when I, ask somebody, when did you have your cable installed or your internet installed in your home? And they go, I don't know, 5 years ago. Okay, 5 years ago. Do you remember what you had to do to get it installed? Yeah, I had to take a half a day off work. It's like,
that's right.
That's not very customer focused.
No.
A half day. Today, you still may need to go meet them to let them in, and they'll give you a window that's an hour. And maybe they're extending their hours to evenings and weekends, because that's when people are home. They're not home during the day. And, people say, well, cable TV, it's not very much by the month. Yeah, but remember, they made you take a half a day off work, and then sometimes they didn't even show up, So anyway, I can go on and on about it. But they are getting better overall as an industry. So I think the numbers speak for themselves. Think about it. Who's like, in your mind, a rock star in customer service? Not in this industry, but any industry.
Yeah, I feel like when I walk into a Jamba Juice, I feel like it's super positive. I'm welcome there. To me, every time that I go in there, I feel like I'm a priority.
Great. Well, I didn't expect you to say Jamba Juice, which, by the way, I love Jamba Juice. Okay, but hey, let's think about it. The way they make you feel. Yeah. How do you think they would handle it if they all of a sudden decided to get into the cable TV or internet business?
That would.
I don't think they would be telling their people wait a half a day in line
to
get your favorite juice. Right.
That's right.
Yep. So that's the point.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. You've got to go beyond the expectations. And, interesting here, the TV and the internet services, we're going to touch on this a bit later, Shep, with the fact that it's a bit of a commoditization. We're going to show some the differences between industries and how they compare on NPS. So let's go into what is customer experience. Have a little bit of a fun analogy here, donut analogy. So what does this make you think of here? What purpose does it serve? Are you excited about this donut? This is kind of are we satisfactory, or are we going above and beyond? So what's your take here?
Well, as I look at this donut, and I think to myself, boy, that's not the donut that I would pick out.
Yeah.
It looks like it's just a plain cake donut. Although some people like that, I think that's not for me. I want something with a little bit more, I don't know, sugar on it, a little bit more taste. I want a little bit better experience. There you go. Look at that. That's what I'm talking about. It looks like a glazed donut. Top it with some chocolate and some sprinkles, and I'm going to be, pull me off the ceiling in a half an hour. So, but
right.
No, I think that's the difference. If all, as I think about it, if when you all you need to survive as far as food goes is some of the basic essentials. You need your proteins and whatever. So you could, buy the minimum. I don't know if you could survive for the rest of your life on peanut butter and jelly, but if that was a staple that would give you what you needed nutrition-wise, you could do that. But why then do people spend money to go out to restaurants and have fancy meals? Or maybe, have, when they come home, they cook and they put condiments on things because they want it to taste better. Well, that's what customers want. They want a better experience. And you know what? In some cases, they're willing to pay dramatically more money to get that experience.
Yep. Absolutely. So we think about the difference between customer service and customer experience and setting expectations. I'd like to draw on something that you wrote recently, an experience that you had, I think it was in Chicago at a hotel where you were promised the best room. We're going to get you in the best available room, and just kind of managing expectations there. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Sure. I had no idea. I walked in, I was feeling good. I went to check in. The woman was so nice and friendly. And I said, hey, by any chance, is this a king size bed? She says, absolutely a king size bed. As a matter of fact, I've got you the best room available. And I said, oh, the best room available. Oh, that sounds so good. And I'll never forget my interaction with her. This was just a few weeks ago, by the way. Okay. I said, does that room come with a view of the beach and the ocean? Now, I was joking because in Chicago, there is no beach and ocean. I guess you could look out on Lake Michigan and maybe see a beach. But I was saying, I'm thinking the best available room. Right. It's like I've got a penthouse suite overlooking the ocean. And she said, oh, you probably would like a city view. Well, for that, you're going to have to pay more. And I said, wait a minute. You just told me I was getting the best available room. And she said, well, I meant the best available room based on what your room rate was. Oh, I get it. So I really didn't get the best available room, did I? So she mismanaged my expectation. And by the way, I didn't care one way or the other. I mean, it was just, I thought, oh, wow. When she said it that way, I thought, you know what? Maybe I'm just too aware of things, but I thought that's a little bit of a letdown. This would be a great article for me to write in my newsletter. And that's exactly what I did. So here's the point. If you're going to promise somebody something, don't let them down. Manage the expectation. I did a little cartoon with my article that I just wrote about this. And it was a customer at a coffee shop. And right behind the person selling the coffee was a sign that says, the second best coffee in town. And and so it's like, and the customer says, why are you promoting the second best coffee in town? And the lady behind the counter said, because everybody else says they're the best, and I don't want to, disappoint or exceed, create a false expectation. And I just thought, okay, that's kind of a funny way of saying, look, you can't say you're the best unless you really are the best. You can't promise somebody the best room in the house if there really are other rooms that are better. And if the customer finds out, you've just blown their expectation.
Yep, that's right. We see a lot of this in marketing. I was just shopping for a pen. I journal, and I was looking at the different assortment of pens, and one said it was the smoothest pen in the world. Right next to it was another one that said it was the smoothest pen in the universe. So which one do I go for there? But
I'm going for the universe.
It's the superlatives, Shep. Everyone is trying to outdo each other. So I agree with you. It's setting expectations and delighting. So you recently, actually a little while ago, you've written on the difference between customer experience and customer service. And right here at the top, proactive versus reactive. I'd like for you to share a little bit about this, your thinking on customer service versus customer experience.
Sure. Well, first of all, understanding that service is, typically the interaction that happens between two people.
Mm-hmm.
The experience, and by the way, it's not always that way, but that's the way a lot of people think of customer service. And I think that's a good way of doing it. And it used to be when you talked about customer experience, you were primarily talking about service. Well, today, the experience is about the entire experience. It's about everything. It's about, if you're going to buy a product, and I mean, Apple's amazing. They have the most amazing packaging and design. That's part of the experience.
That's right.
A follow-up email that you might get just thanking you is part of the experience. It's also part of service. But as I look at the slide that you have here, take a look at the differences. Yeah, service is typically reactive. Somebody's coming to you and asking for some. However, I think proactive customer service is very important, and obviously that adds to the experience. And I'll even go a step further that sometimes proactive customer service is about finding a problem before the customer even knows there's a problem and fixing it, and then letting the customer know that, hey, I just wanted to let you know what happened and that we got it all under control.
Yep.
And it's like, wow, thanks for paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
But as you look at the different attributes that you have on the left side, which is customer experience, compared to the right side, customer service, and some of those can overlap. As you see, when you work them together, what makes people want to come back? By the way, you need both. It's not one or the other.
Right.
It's just understanding the differences between them.
Yep. We want to go into the measurement a bit here, Shep. Thank you for that. So there are different ways to do this, to understand. Companies seek to understand what their customer experience is. QuestionPro, we help a lot of companies understand that. NPS, Net Promoter Score, has definitely made a big splash on the scene. Dr. Fred Reichheld, you mentioned that, coming in and talking about loyalty and how can we kind of predict what's going to happen based on their overall experience. When I was at Verizon Wireless, we moved from a transactional-based survey asking you, Shep, what was it like when you called into customer service, or what was it like when you visited a store? We changed from that to the NPS methodology of asking about the overall experience, but still looking at those touch points. What are you seeing as far as companies that are adopting this, and why do you think Net Promoter Score has had such strong adoption?
Sure. And a couple of things that you said that I think are really crucial to understand. Many times the Net Promoter Score is used improperly. It's used to base a finite interaction. And I think if you want to do that, there's nothing wrong with that. It's like, how was your recent experience with us? How was the phone call you were just on with our support rep?
Mm-hmm.
But the true Net Promoter Score is on a scale of 0 to 10. What's the likelihood that you would recommend us? Mm-hmm. Now, if you want to add recommend us based on your last interaction, that takes it to that deeper level or the more granular level. But I want to know that overall, are we doing a good enough job? Because, by the way, nobody's perfect. But if you can say overall, I give you a 10, it means I'm your biggest promoter. If I give you a 6, why did that happen? Maybe it was my last interaction that caused that, or maybe it was the last 3 or 4. And if you asked me 3 or 4 times ago, what would I give you? I might have given you a 10. But now with this consistent negative experience, I'm now giving you a lower number. And it's not based on one incident. It's based on my overall feeling. You've got some other measurement ideas, customer SAT scores, customer effort scores, but I love NPS for its simplicity. Mm-hmm. And I think that's key. And sometimes simplicity has drawbacks, but I think the overall gain of getting a big picture number like this is really, really important.
Yep. Yeah, going to one overall measurement. It's interesting when a company like Verizon, Fortune 100 company, can go to a 2-question survey. I really think that a lot of companies, pretty much any company, could do that. We had a many question survey before that and really simplified it. Of course, you hear from a better representative sample, let's say, of your customers, and then it's all about actioning it. Let's go into the definition. You talked about how you do that. It's the how likely is it that you would recommend our brand to a friend, a family member, a colleague? I've seen it phrased there different ways. You said sometimes it's based on the most recent experience here. It's loyalty quantified effectively. You're looking at the holistic experience instead of just a single touch point on the customer journey. So we're seeing this across industries, this adoption. Let me go ahead and take us to the next slide here. Here's the calculation. You take that 0 to 10, 0 to 6 is a detractor, 7 and 8 are your passives, and then 9s and 10s are your promoters. You effectively take the passives out of the equation, take your percentage of promoters minus your percentage of detractors, and then you get your percent. So the scale is actually negative 100 to positive 100%. And then let's take a look at what we're seeing by industry. This is a really interesting slide. All the way down here, if we look over here on the right-hand side, you can see these different verticals, all the way from auto dealers and software at the top, down to what I'd probably characterize as services that are more commoditized. We have TV service, internet service. Those showed up on an earlier slide. Utilities, even wireless carriers down there. What are your thoughts on that, kind of the breakdown by industry, comparing expectations to the actual experience, Shep?
Well, I'm fascinated that the auto dealers are as high as they are here. And by the way, it's not because they aren't good, but I know there's some other great companies or great industries that are out there. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't surprise me that something that is very commoditized, such as TV service providers, which your cable TV. Well, usually there's 2 or 3 in town, and it's all about what deal can I get? Am I a new customer? Yes. By the way, that's a whole nother topic, offering new customers a better deal than your loyal customers that have been with you a long time. Don't get me started.
I know.
Health plans, insurance is insurance. Yeah, but we've got to prove that we're different. So as you look at dealers, at the top, your automobile dealers, once again, automobile is a commodity in a sense that all I need is an engine and some wheels and get me where I'm supposed to go. Can it be done in a $15,000 car, or do I have to spend $50,000 or $100,000 or $150,000? And you'll see the discrepancy between the dealers on the low end and the dealers on the high end. There was a J.D. Power survey on automotive dealerships, and I think this will put it in perspective for you. And this will make it also understanding. Anybody who's paying attention to our webinar, it's like, gosh, how do I do all this? It's not that hard. So J.D. Powers studied what the most successful auto dealerships in the industry did that separated them from the laggards, if you will. And that is, number one, it was easy to make an appointment. You can call, you can get in. When the customer showed up, they were ready for them. They had the paperwork already filled out and ready to go, and they greeted them properly. And then they knew what work was going to be performed. They called if they, to let them know that the car was ready, and it was usually ready earlier, if not, at least on time from when it was promised. Yep. And then when the customer came and picked it up, it was clean. They washed the car. Now, to me, that is all common sense. Maybe the car washing is a little special. You don't get that in every dealership. But you know what? It's like, what about the rest of it? It's all about being easy to do business with and meeting the expectation that you promise.
Yeah.
And that's common sense. And if any of these companies would do that, then they'd start to see their scores rise. First and foremost, you can't, obviously exceed expectations. That'd be awesome. And how much? We talked about this at the beginning, just a tiny little bit.
Mm-hmm.
The bar is at average. Be better than average consistently. And that's the key. The consistency, a little bit better than average, and you'll start to see the trend of the scores go up. Now, there's other things that go into it. You've got to have great people working for you. They have to have the right attitude. They have to know how to properly engage with their customers. Depending upon how you support people, do you have a good self-service solution? Are you using some technology? Are you managing different channels of support, such as, are you available on social channels? Are you doing email in addition to phone? Instant chat, even using a chat bot. Yeah. All of these channels, they're going to go toward the experience. And by the way, customers have different experiences, generational differences between millennials and baby boomers and everyone in between and anybody older or younger. They're all going to have a different expectation, and you've got to decide who you're going after and how you want to go after them and how you want to take care of them and determine where you are and the kind of business you're in. It's impossible to be perfect for everyone.
Yeah.
But so pick your lane and stay in it and be really, really good in the lane that you're in.
Yeah, one of the themes I heard there from you that you gave in a couple examples, Shep, is making it easy to do business with you. Just understanding what those friction points are, like you talked about that J.D. Power and Associates study. It doesn't take much to go beyond average, but you want to make it easy for people to interact with you. One of the things that we see, and even the method for asking for feedback can be difficult. Paper surveys, long surveys. I come in and get a cup of coffee, and next thing I know, I get a 30-question survey. When I was in the
I hate that.
In the coffee shop for 5 minutes.
It takes longer to do the survey than it does for the whole experience.
That's right.
It drives me crazy.
Every part of it, even the survey itself, is part of the experience. And so one of the best practices that we use at QuestionPro is to embed the NPS rating question in the body of the email. It just makes it feel friendly. If they go ahead and click on one of these, the survey opens, and then you'll get the open end. Tell us why you rated us this way. And a lot of times that's it. You're done. So throughout the experience, make it easy. And then it's about actioning that feedback. It's about understanding it. It's about doing something with it. Gone are the days where you'd have a survey that's filled out and it goes into a black hole. It goes over the research department, and the results might show up on a quarterly report internally where people say, okay, what can we do to improve the business? Now what we're seeing is best practice. Companies are getting that feedback immediately. They're closing the loop. I'm going to touch just on a couple of these here. One in particular that interests me is closing the loop with customers, and how amazed people are when you fill out a survey and you hear back from that business within a day or two. And they said, we read your feedback, and we're if you're not satisfied, we're not satisfied. Can you tell us more about that experience? Let's make it right. What are you seeing, Shep, as far as companies that are following up and kind of using this as a best practice for closing the loop?
So it's really interesting that when people see their detractors, they freak out and they want to try to save the detractors.
Right.
Okay. And you know what? They're already halfway out the door, if not all the way out the door. Mm-hmm. And I believe it's extremely important to follow up and say, okay, what can we do to make this right for you? You're obviously not happy. Mm-hmm. Now, your passives in the middle, I think they're just as dangerous as your detractors. I used to call the satisfied customer the dangerous customer because you don't know which direction they're going to go. That's why, are they leaning more toward being a detractor or being more toward a promoter? So interesting question to ask those passives who give you that 7 or an 8. What would it take to raise the point by just 1 point? What would it take to raise the rating by just 1 point?
Yep.
That's an interesting question to ask those ones in the middle. Now, you get to the 9s and the 10s, you should follow up with those promoters because they may give you the very best information, all right? And this is simple. I love to ask, especially the ones of the people who love us, what's the one thing you can think of that would make it even better? It's an open-ended question.
Yep.
And by the way, what you're asking, these are all open-ended questions, these follow-up type questions. And here's what I'm looking for. If you've got, let's just say you sent out, you got 1,000 responses and 60% of them gave you a 9 or a 10. So that means you've got 600 responses of people that love you and would promote you. And you ask them, what's the one thing you can think of? And if 150 people give you the same one thing, that's a pretty darn good idea. If one person gives it to you, well, we'll look at it, we'll consider it, that's one person. But if 100, 150, 200 people are saying, you know what would make it better? You need to listen. And that's the opportunity to improve on greatness.
Yes. Yep. And like you said, it may only take just a little bit to stand up above average and to set yourself apart from the competition.
Right.
So this last one here is another key one I want to point out, which is tracking the touch points, getting down into what I would refer to as the micro drivers of NPS. Again, NPS steps up and says, how was the overall experience with the brand? It's kind of going along those lines. How likely is it that you would recommend us? But understanding, getting underneath that with the touch points is key. And one of the things that we're seeing is our clients they're getting this data, they get their survey data, and they want to dive into the touch points. They're spending a lot of time on correlation analysis. And one of the things that we've done in this area to help our clients is to help them understand what these microdrivers are, look at individual components of the overall experience to say, maybe it's tell us about price, tell us about packaging, tell us about the friendliness of the customer service representative, and then showing how those match up and where your priorities are. And we actually use Spearman's correlation here for the mathematics, those who are listening, the mathematics behind this analysis, but to save our clients a ton of time to be able to prioritize what they're doing here. So essentially get underneath that big number and get down to the details so I know, okay, I can make a big impact if I'm to focus on this or focus on that. Okay.
Well, this is really what you're looking for is the journey map and the touch points along the top, which is the interaction you have directly with the customer. And there you need to analyze where friction points occur, where does it get tough? And it really, every company has probably multiple customer journeys depending upon, is this a first-time customer, a repeat customer? Are they calling into support versus are they using a different support channel, a social channel, or even email, whatever. But now what companies many times don't do is look at what's happening underneath, behind the scenes, because this is really important. The journey at the top is impacted by everything happening behind the scenes. So my favorite example of this, and I use this because Jan Carlson wrote the book titled Moments of Truth about every interaction that a customer has is an opportunity to form an impression. But he talked about behind the scenes. And if you are flying an airline, and Jan Carlson ran Scandinavian Airlines back in the early 80s, if you checked your bag, and I live in St. Louis, Missouri, and let's say I'm going to California, well, that's about a 3.5-hour flight. So if I check my bag here and I see it go down the conveyor belt, and the next time I see it is at the carousel in Los Angeles, well, guess what? I'm thinking, well, that was pretty cool. You have no idea how many people touched that bag, moved it from one cart to the next, scanned the ticket to make sure it went to the right place. It's amazing the number of impact points behind the scenes. And part of the operational system that you have to create is not just easy for the customer, but easy for the employees to drive that experience that the customer is having. So I encourage every company who takes a look at what we're talking about here is to also look behind the scenes and see what's driving that. Where is the impact point that can negatively impact the experience? That, hey, if my luggage gets on the wrong airplane, it won't be at the carousel. How did that happen? Why did it happen? By the way, I don't know if you saw a Facebook post I put out there. I took a picture. I was sitting on the tarmac of an airport, and there was just one lone suitcase sitting on the tarmac, probably, I'm going to say, about 100 feet from the nearest airplane. And I kept seeing luggage carts, the trucks with the guys driving the carts, driving by. At least 10 of them drove by. Nobody, they didn't even stop and even bother to even hesitate driving by this piece of luggage. And I'm going, oh man, I'm just glad I didn't check my luggage that day.
They're focused on their part of the journey. It kind of goes back to, the United example that we talked about earlier, the incident. They're focused on operations. They have a standard operating procedure. this is what I'm told to do. And they're not looking outside of that to see, what's the bigger picture. And they would have noticed that luggage had they been thinking that way, right?
Disney has a great line, and I love Disney, and you could say all kinds of great things. Some people say a few things that aren't so great. Overall, I think they're one of the most amazing companies in the world. Disney, everybody that comes to work for Disney has 3 jobs to do. Number 1 is to do the job that they were hired to do. If you're hired to sweep, take a ticket, serve beverages, whatever it is, maintenance, doesn't matter. That's the job you were hired to do. Number 2, you are to take care of the guest. And that may be just as important, if not even more so, than job number 1. Mm-hmm. And the third job is, hey, you're in the park, keep the park clean. You see a piece of paper, you pick it up, you throw it away. So do the job you're hired to do, take care of the customer, and keep the park clean. Now, if you eliminate number 3, mm-hmm. those other 2, every company, those people, the baggage handlers that were driving those baggage carts, if they saw that bag, they should have stopped and made sure that some customer wasn't going to not have their bag when they arrived at their destination.
Yep. To me, that's a lot of times it's a mentality of ownership, right? I'm not just here to do one job. I also have ownership for everything that's going on. And if I see something that's out of place, I'm going to jump in. It doesn't matter my title, the definition of my role. I have to jump in because I care about the company. I care about the business. I had an example. I was in Vegas recently at a convention, and I went over to the FedEx shop, and I had to take care of having something printed there. And I watched one of the employees and how she interacted with the customers. And the customers came in, they're busy. I get it. They're frazzled and they're feeling a bit entitled. And she responded to these kind of negative interactions, not just with a kind of matter of fact, but she went above and beyond. I could see it in her attitude. And to me, I knew instinctively she has that owner mentality. I don't know if she is the branch manager or what. And then I had an opportunity to talk with her after the fact and said, are you by chance a manager? She said, I am. And you could see it, Shep. There's a difference in that mentality of, I'm not just here for a single role. I care about the overall experience. So I enjoyed seeing that and gave her some feedback there. One of the things I want to go to here on the next slide is that process. And you talked about the customer journey, mapping the customer journey. So I'll briefly touch on this. When a client comes to us and says, we want to understand what the experience is, we want to find ways to make the experience better. One of the first things we start with here over on the left-hand side is mapping out the customer journey. When are they experiencing the brand? Is it the time of booking? It's when they check in at the airport. It's the in-flight experience. It's being on the website, or it's calling into customer service after. You start out at that high level, and then typically we'll take that big view, narrowed, bring it back in and say, what are the most critical touch points now on this journey? And then we'll align collection methods for getting feedback. And, it could be sending a text message, an email, it could be a pop-up on a website, and then ultimately collecting that information, analyzing it, and then acting on it. I assume you are also consulting with clients and helping them see this. Can you give us an example?
Of which part of this? I think you've laid it out. Here's a great exercise we do with our clients. We ask them, and so what we're really looking for is, we're going to map out the journey. We want to identify critical touch points. When I see the word critical is like, okay, this is a make or break. So we'll ask our clients as they sit in a room, what are the touch points? Where do you see the friction? Where are your biggest complaints? Let's talk about them. Yeah. And we'll get them out there and we'll say, okay, why do we, and they'll say, these are the ones we hear over and over again. And my first question is, why do you hear them over and over again? Mm-hmm. Why can't you fix these, so that you don't hear about them over and over again, or at least eliminate, or mitigate them, to a smaller percentage of your complaints that are coming in. Mm-hmm. In my mind, there's no excuse for, if you have some control over it, for the same problem to happen over and over and over again. If you're always out of something, why don't you order more of it?
Yeah.
Okay. It's like, that's your biggest complaint. So the first thing we do is we sit down and we identify what all of the most, what I would say, highest number of complaints in any particular area. Now, you can't fix all of them at once, but you can take one or two, maybe three at a time. You say, what are we going to do to work on these? And we then spend the next 3 to 6 months, depending upon the type of business, type of problem they have. And then we come back, we sit down and say, okay, let's talk about, once again, same question. What are your biggest friction points? And let's see if any of the ones we've been working on get moved down the list as far as, a percentage. So that's what we're trying to achieve is, we're never going to be perfect. Perfect is not reality, but the quest to get there is what gets customers coming back.
Yep. And when you're looking at the different customer kind of segments, are you seeing companies that are diving into the economics behind that, such as customer lifetime value or lifetime value of a customer, and seeing how they can, when they move people from, for instance, a passive to being a promoter, identify what those things are? Are you seeing them getting into the measurement, the financial impact, and does that make it more tangible for the organization?
Yeah, it has to be. So something I wanted to say a long time ago is, and it's attributed to Deming or to Drucker, that you can't, the words are, or the phrase is, you can't manage what you don't measure. And if once you can put measurement to it, you can track and you can see differences. And are there financial implications, positive financial implications? And I want to say something that I think is really important. Not every company has to go above and beyond and blow people away and have the most incredible service in the world. You have to be very careful and pick and choose where you want to make the improvement, because in some cases, even if you make an improvement, it won't matter. And that's not necessarily bad, but if you're looking at it, from a revenue standpoint, you can go broke trying to be the best when you don't need to be the best. I had a client that said they want to be number one in their entire industry. And I said, well, that's a lofty goal, but it's real hard to stay at number one. You'll get knocked down to number 2 or 3. Let's do it this way. There's 20 major manufacturers in your industry. Why don't you shoot for top 20%? That means you're in the top 4. Stay there. You can do that. That's more manageable. And we can show how it makes a difference. And then I'll talk about somebody that's not my client. Great article in Harvard Business Review came out a few years ago that showed Walmart, and I have worked for Walmart, but not in this capacity. Walmart did a major store redesign based on customer feedback. And the feedback was, aisles were too close, cluttered, too much merchandise, not enough lighting. So they spent millions of dollars on these experimental stores. And the result was great feedback, better feedback from the customers. What was the financial implication? There was none.
Wow.
So if you think about it, now maybe, hey, let's take some of these into consideration. Maybe, hey, we can make it a little bit brighter in there. That might make it a little bit nicer. I get it. It feels, I'm not saying that the Walmart stores are like this, but I'm just giving you an example that there's things that you could probably do that have minimal cost, but might at least increase the ratings. And you should go for a better customer experience when it really doesn't take much to do so. But if spending a lot of money in a major store redesign or a major project, if that's what you're doing, you better make sure there's going to be some monetary ROI at the end of it all.
Yeah, that's good. Focusing on the revenue, using a predictive revenue model can be good, but your point is not everything that you do to improve the customer experience or act on that feedback is necessarily going to impact revenue. And it's good to understand that. Shep, I want to close up with...
I got a really cool comment about this because I think Amazon is a perfect example of this that we're talking about.
Yeah.
What is Amazon known for? They're a website, right? Selling items, the massive merchandise selection at competitive, if not the lowest prices.
Yep.
So they come out with this Prime program, $99, and you get free shipping. And they've definitely shown that somebody spending $99 spends more money than somebody who doesn't. And I think that alone. So Jeff Bezos says, we got to keep getting these people to be loyal to us. So they created their what do you call it, unique programming on their Prime Video. meaning that you're seeing TV shows and movies that are produced by Amazon. And when asked, why are you doing that? Say, well, because we want to make sure. And by the way, I'm sure they're making some money on it, but the reason behind was to retain people on the Prime program, not to make money off of people on the Prime program. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So they're spending a ton of money to just make sure that Prime customer is delighted enough to want to come back and renew their Prime subscription. And I love that model because it shows that, you know what, it's worth sometimes doing the right thing to create a better experience, even if it doesn't cause a growth, but it causes retention.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. It's the unique content that they have there that people get hooked on. They expect that, and that's something they can't get if they were to switch over to one of the competitors, for instance, leave Prime. So.
Yeah, and I think more than anything, he wanted to give them a benefit and a reason to stay. And so, you're right. You won't get it anywhere else. And by the way, that's one of the things that's when you're marketing and you're selling your differences, what is it that we do that no one else does that they can't get anywhere else that they really want?
Yep.
Why should I do business with you instead of them? That's a big question. And so what are your unique differences? And it isn't, we give better service, because everybody says that.
Yep.
It's like, what can you tangibly prove that you do better than everyone else? And in Amazon's case, you can't get some of the TV shows and some of the movies that they've created. It's like Netflix, a Netflix original, an Amazon Prime original.
Right.
Yeah. It's not anywhere else. It's there, just there.
So that's great. That's one way, to differentiate. I'm sure that the people who are listening to this webinar right now are wondering, what can I take away from this? What can I do let's bring it back and improve my business? Let's take the audience through these. I would love for you've written on these, just kind of give some top tips here that the audience can take and maybe bring into their business and help improve the customer experience, Shep.
Sure. And we've already talked about making it easy, the friction points. Right. You want to eliminate and mitigate the friction. And I shared with you an exercise we do with some of our companies. So that's obvious. You should be as easy as possible to do business with. And you know what? If I were you, mystery shop your own company. Go to the website. Is your contact information? I recently tried to reach a major company, and I could not find a phone number for their headquarters anywhere. And I finally found it. I had to do, you've got, Google and everything else, and finally found it. But man, why couldn't it be easier? Go look at Zappos's website, and you'll see phone number, the easiest way in the world to contact people. Valuable, being knowledgeable. Knowledgeable is a credibility builder, and that doesn't mean somebody has to have the information at their fingertips all the time, but they need to know where to go to get the information and bring it back and share it in such a way that creates credibility and trust. Which comes from, the ability to get back to somebody at a reasonable period of time. We'll talk about, respond ASAP. I see that down there, but let's get to that in a moment. Being friendly, building rapport, breaking the ice. I called the company up recently, and the first thing the person asked me was for my account number. They didn't say, hello, how are you? What's your name? They said, can I have your account number, please? And I didn't have it. They actually found it when they looked up my phone number, which, by the way, they had anyway because there was caller ID.
Right.
Let's not get into that. But they gave me my account number, and then they transferred me to the appropriate department. And what do you think the first person I talked to asked me? What's your account number?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay. Like they didn't already know who I was. I mean, come on. I mean, this is ridiculous. So be friendly, create a personalized experience. Now, responding ASAP, speed definitely matters. You look at some of the response times that companies have. I recently did some work with FedEx, and if you have an issue, their goal is, and you decide to email them, their goal is to respond within 20 minutes, or if you are on a social channel and tweet to them. If you look at the general numbers for how long it takes for somebody to respond to a tweet, it's about 7 hours. That's ridiculous.
That is.
If I wanted my question or problem answered in 7 hours, I would wait 7 hours to ask the question. So, and then finally, being consistent. It's the consistent and predictable experience that creates confidence. Confidence is the only place that you will you have to get there if you want loyalty, if you want repeat business. So better than average, predictable and consistent. That's what makes amazing companies amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Thank you so much for sharing that, Shep. I've got a couple of questions here. I think we have time to cover maybe one or two of these questions. One of the big things is getting buy-in from management to drive the customer experience. How do you see people who are not C-level appealing to and getting buy-in from C-levels within the organization that we need to apply effort to this, and that could be human resources, could be financial resources, it can be needing to go out to a lot of different departments to make things happen. What's the best practice for gaining buy-in from executives and organization to go after customer experience?
So it's real simple, and it's a short answer. It could take a long time if we dive into it, but if you're going to approach the C-suite with an idea, and if it happens to be this idea about customer experience, you have to prove ROI. They want to see the numbers.
Yeah.
So show the numbers, get to the numbers, and I think you'll state your case, you'll make your case, and you have a better chance at getting your case, given to you what you're asking for.
Excellent. And then let's last question here. Let's go into those numbers. What are those metrics that you are seeing are most important to the C-level? Obviously, something about customer lifetime value and kind of how we can equate that to future value for those customers. What else are you seeing as an important metric?
Lifetime value is cool, and I believe that everybody needs to understand lifetime value. Let's say a lifetime value of a customer is in a grocery store is $5,000, and but today somebody's coming in and buying one carton of milk for $3. Next week they might come in and buy a basket of groceries for their family, and it's $150. So who should you treat better? The person who's buying one carton of milk, or you need to treat them all as if they're worth $5,000. If that's the lifetime value. So we'll get to that. But other interesting stats and facts. I'd like to know what your average customer purchase number is. What's the dollar amount? And I'd like to understand frequency, and I'd like to understand if the amount changes based on a customer with higher frequency versus lower frequency of purchase. Hence, the more loyal customer, the one that comes back more often, what does that mean versus somebody that comes in once in a while or versus somebody that just comes in once? Those numbers are really important to make your case as to the effort that you should spend and the money you should spend to try to create the better experience that gets people to come back.
Wonderful. Yep. Couldn't agree more. Thank you so much, Shep.
My pleasure.
That pretty much wraps it up here, and we have some contact information. Definitely would encourage the audience to reach out to Shep and his organization and QuestionPro. Follow Shep on Twitter. We've got the Twitter handle right there at Hyken. Shep, thank you so much for sharing your experience. You're so knowledgeable, and so many great stories and analogies that we can take and help understand this better. You really help simplify it. So we appreciate you joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me, Mark. Appreciate it. Hope we get to do it again soon.
Looking forward to it. Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.